Welcome to Subramani. I'm just wondering, I deal with a lot of runners or I meet a lot of runners, and I also manage to tell people about how they should be managing their money. And I was just wondering what are the similarities between the two. And I'm not just talking about amateur runners. Let us talk of even professional athletes. The players like Saina Nehwal, Sania Mirza, or Virat Kohli, Sachin Tendulkar, and that type also. So do they get up in the morning saying I have to be slightly better than my neighbor? I have to be, they don't. They set for themselves what I think Bill Gates calls BHAG, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals. There is absolutely no reason why they should be setting themselves anything less than that. For example, in terms of fitness, I believe Virat Kohli compares himself to Roger Federer, because Roger Federer is one of those long-lasting athletes. Same thing for many boys and girls, men and women who are in the film industry, right? They set for themselves very high standards in terms of fitness and in terms of what goals they want to reach, right? So big, hairy, audacious goals. So I want to be the best. I will spend 6 hours a day in the gym or 5 hours a day in the gym. I'll follow a diet. I'll do all that is required to attain those goals. First of all, the goals are big. Goals are hairy, they're audacious, absolutely audacious. I want to be a world champion. I want to win I want to win the World Cup. I want India to win the World Cup. I want to, those kind of goals. This is not setting out to say, oh, I should be able to buy a car or I should be able to buy a house. Those are absolutely on the side, right? Big, audacious goals. So it's like waking up one day in class 8 or class 9 and say, I want to be the Prime Minister of the country, right? Nothing wrong in having such goals, but you have to work towards it. You have to commit yourself to big, hairy goals. It is not just making a goal and saying, oh, if it happens, then good, and I will be able to do it. Second, I think these people have one thing in common which they have with good investors, and I've seen this with very many good investors. They don't get into some instant success. They don't think that, oh, by doing this, by buying this share, I will triple my wealth. It doesn't really happen, because even if I were to tell you that this is a great share and you're say 55 years of age or 60 years of age, you're not going to put all your wealth into that. You shouldn't, right? So similarly, there is no question of let me buy a lottery ticket and get rich. There is no instant richness, and they know that they can at best be some kind of immediate pleasure on getting something like that, but it is not a sustainable way. Buying a lottery ticket is not a sustainable way of getting wealthy, right? It is definitely a one-way ticket to getting poor, or doing part-time trading, right? You're a full-time employee, maybe you're a chartered accountant or an engineer, you're a full-time employee somewhere, and you think by watching some television, watching some videos, you can do a trading, and you can do some trading, some F&O, and you get wealthy. There are no such shortcuts. You can occasionally maybe get some pleasure out of doing this, but in the long run it will only ruin you, right? So none of these people, none of these world-class athletes have ever worked on their own. They all have a coach. I seriously don't know. I mean, how can you work without a coach when you have some audacious goals, right? So whether you want to be a great swimmer, whether you want to be a great tennis player, or whether you want to be a good cricketer, or you want to be a good film star, I'm sure John Abraham or Samantha Prabhu, all of them have a coach, and they work with a coach towards their fitness. Similarly, you need a coach with whom you work for your money, because I don't think we all have enough time to do a DIY and find out what happens, unless of course you have a fantastic job which pays you a salary and an index pension and allows you to work for 3-4 hours a day, right? There are some people who need to work only for 10-12 hours a week. If that is not what describes you, if you don't have a sinecure kind of a job, then you better have to work towards it. You don't have enough time to sit and learn and have the ability to do everything. You can't know everything about physical education. You cannot know everything about diet. You cannot know everything about rest. You cannot know everything about sleep. Cannot know everything about how much water to drink, right? You need a medical coach, a doctor, somebody who is a dietitian, and you need a physical coach who will make you push that extra minute in the gym, right? So when you have to do 20 reps, you have to do 20 reps. You need somebody who will stand next to you and count so that you don't slack off at 17, 18, right? Or say, oh, I think I've done 20. So there is somebody who is counting out loud and pushing you, and that is the job of a coach. A coach is a person who has been there, done that, right? Very good chance that he has been through this process. Maybe he's not won, maybe he's not won a Wimbledon, maybe he's not won a World Cup, but then he's been there, he's played, he knows the psychology of a top class player, right? So you need such a coach to be able to take you to those big hairy goals, right? So you need a good dietitian, you need a good gym, you need a good gym instructor, you need all these things. All these are necessary for you to be successful. So trying to work without a world-class coach for somebody who is it's really very difficult. Then you have to know when to push how much, right? So during the season, when you're about to compete, you want to reduce your workout, and during off season you want to work real hard. If you're staying in very cold places, you want a gym which is very nicely temperature controlled, because when the outside temperature is minus 10 degrees, you really can't do much outside work. But then you have to have an internal gym where you have a treadmill, you have weights, etc., on which you work. So similarly, when these are difficult circumstances, you still have to work on your portfolio. You cannot just say, oh, I will do nothing. Maybe doing nothing is good, but it has to be doing nothing as a part of strategy. So for an athlete, taking rest is equally important. So some athletes have to be forced to take rest, and there is enough evidence to prove that rest is very important. So some athletes who have been forced to take rest because of injury just before leading to a big event have benefited by the rest that they took, right? So knowing when to push, when not to push, when to cool off, when to say, okay, this is the time when I will sit in cash. It's not necessary that I should be invested. Even though I've got some cash, it does not mean I have to buy something, right? So knowing all those things either by yourself or along with a coach, and sitting and learning with the coach, right? So I'm sure if you have had a physical trainer coach with you for 5-10 years, then you know how to handle it. But you still need a coach to push you and say, okay, the barbell should not be on your neck, it should be on your shoulder, right? You should be doing this, raise your arms only so much, not so much, right? So pushing yourself and having a coach who will push you is pretty useful. Then it's also important to have a coach or a good financial advisor to pick yourself up when you fall or when you fail. Somebody comes and sends you a bad product, your coach should be able to handhold you and say, I realize under what circumstances you did it. You could have perhaps asked me, say it very subtly. Don't say, Arey boss, this bank has had you. तुमको मस्त उल्लू बनाया, because then the client feels insulted. You think you're insulting the bank, the client thinks you're insulting him, saying, look, you're so dumb that you bought a bad product. So you need to say it very nicely and subtly and say what circumstances led you to buying that product, because bad products are more than good products, and good products are very simple, dull, boring. So it is possible that people go and buy some exciting products which are actually bad. There can be an exactly similar product with an insurance company, one with taxable returns and one without taxable returns, right? And one which allows you more scope to withdraw, and one which has a longer lock-in, right? So depending on the channel from which you buy, you could be buying an extremely bad, expensive product which sounds exactly similar, right? Both sound like a pension plan, but one could be good and one could be a disaster. Simply because the bank gets a higher commission, you will be ending up buying a bad product. I mean, you could be buying it from a bank, you could be buying from an individual, but chances are you will buy a bad product if you don't ask your coach. So knowing when to fall, I mean, or rather you don't really know when to fall, but if you've fallen, you need a coach to handhold you. You will go through bad patches, right? Virat Kohli is an internationally great player, one of the top 5-10 batsmen in the world, and he's going through a bad phase, right? So these things can happen. To sit through bad phases, right? Sitting through a bad market is not going to be easy, but you have to do it, and you have to keep on working in the gym. You cannot say, oh, I'm not getting selected, so I need not work. I'm not getting any movies, so I need not work. Look at women who have, I mean, look at people like Kareena Kapoor, the kind of effort that must have gone in to look slim or to look to be in contention for getting a role today, with younger girls pressing on your back and really breathing down your neck. You need to have that kind of a tremendous commitment, right? So similarly, you will have a situation where your portfolio is doing badly and you feel like giving up and saying, okay, let me withdraw whatever is there. So it is the job of the coach to make sure that you're a long-term endurance athlete, or you're a long-term investor. Maybe you have a 50-year horizon. So your coach knows that, right? The market doesn't know that. The CNBC TV doesn't know that. ET Now doesn't know that, right? The media doesn't know that. So the media has a short-term view and you have a 50-year view on your investment. It is your coach who should understand that you have a 50-year view, and you should keep repeating, like, look, in the 50-year view, this is going to be just a blip. Ukraine war, just a blip. Doesn't matter, right? Riots, prime minister killed, just a blip. Doesn't really matter. In the long run, the market will go up. Somebody who has to assure you that, right? And somebody who will, you harness your worry and fear. You will obviously have a lot of insecurities. I'm sure even a good player like Virat Kohli must be going through a lot of uncertainties. Heroines must be going through a lot of uncertainties when they don't hit a good movie for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. Then you don't know whether it is just stopped or it's a temporary blip. So similarly, you do not know whether the market is fallen, will it fall further or will it go up? You don't know. You have to relentlessly keep on doing your SIP. You know you shouldn't be withdrawing during bad times, and you should be willing to go the extra mile. When your coach says do 21 reps and you're 20 reps and you're willing to do 21, right? So, and having that energy and enthusiasm throughout. So similarly, you think by doing a 5,000 rupee SIP you can achieve a goal. You do 5,000, but occasionally when you have some money, you go and put it into that goal. Putting more money for a longer time is the surest way to success. So similarly, for an endurance athlete, working hard, going that extra mile, and all those things. Not your masses are not willing to do that. Remember, people will say, oh, I have these goals, but they will not work towards it relentlessly. They will say, oh, today I have a headache, I can't go for a run, right? But when an athlete looks at it as a profession, ask yourself one question. If you have a slight headache and a very important business meeting, you will still go? You will take an Anacin or an aspirin or whatever and still go for the meeting. But if you get up at 6 o'clock with a slight headache, you'll say, let me not go for a run, because for you, running is a hobby. For these athletes, running or cricket or table tennis or badminton is the profession. They do not skip their running just because they have a slight headache. They will still go and run. They're asking themselves a question: what happens if on the day of my event I have a slight headache? Will I not do the event? I will do the event. So every day of practice is treated like that. That is how, if you are so nicely dedicated towards your profession, or similar dedication is required towards your portfolio. Not many doctors understand this because they want an instant success in their portfolio. It's not possible. It took time for you to build your practice. It takes time for you to build your portfolio. Same is true in any profession. Same is true in whether you're an athlete or whether you're an investor. You have to have this long-term orientation, ability to pick up, work with a good coach. When you put all this together, you create a good portfolio. Thank you. And here we are here to create wealth, not just one instant. Buying a share at $10 and selling it off at $100 doesn't really help. You have to have a sustained basis of creating wealth. Thank you.